Video Lecture Module 4, Brain Stem and the Cerebellum. Brainstem begins where the spinal cord swells slightly after entering the skull. The slight swelling is the medulla. Here lies the controls for your heartbeat and breathing. Just above the medulla sits the pons, which helps coordinate movements. The brainstem is the crossover point where most nerves to and from each side of the brain connect with the body's opposite side. Sitting atop the brainstem is the thalamus. It acts as the brain's sensory switchboard. It receives information from the senses and routes it to the higher brain regions. Inside the brainstem, between your ears, lies the reticular formation. As the spinal cord sensory input travels up to the thalamus, some of it travels through the reticular formation, which filters incoming stimuli and relays information to other areas of the brain. Cerebellum helps us judge time, deal with emotion, and discriminate sounds and textures. It also coordinates voluntary movement. The limbic system is a neural system, including the hippocampus, amygdala, and hypothalamus, located below the cerebral hemispheres, and is associated with emotions and drives. The amygdala consists of two lima bean-sized neural clusters linked to the emotions of fear and anger. Just below the thalamus is the hypothalamus, an important link in the chain of command governing bodily maintenance. Some neural clusters in the hypothalamus influence hunger, others regulate thirst, body temperature, and sexual behavior. The hypothalamus both monitors blood chemistry and takes orders from other parts of the brain. It helps govern the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. When allowed to press pedals to trigger their own stimulation in these areas, rats would sometimes do so at a feverish pace, up to 7,000 times per hour, until they dropped from exhaustion. They would even cross an electrified floor that a starving rat would not cross to reach food. Although not mentioned specifically in the slides, the hippocampus is important for processing new explicit memories. As previously mentioned in class, explicit memories are facts, general knowledge, and autobiographical memories. Each brain hemisphere is divided into 4 lobes that are separated by prominent fissures. These are the frontal lobes, parietal lobes, occipital lobes, and temporal lobes. Frontal lobe is the portion of the cerebral cortex lying just behind the forehead. It is involved in speaking and muscle movements and in making plans and judgments. Parietal lobe is the portion of the cerebral cortex lying at the top of the head and toward the rear. It receives sensory input for touch and body position. Occipital lobe is the portion of the cerebral cortex lying at the back of the head. It includes areas that receive information from visual fields. The temporal lobe is the portion of the cerebral cortex lying roughly above the ears. It includes the auditory areas, each receiving information primarily from the opposite ear. The motor cortex is the area of the rear of the frontal lobes that controls voluntary movement. The sensory cortex, part of the parietal cortex, receives information from skin surface and sense organs.